Okay, I'll be back in a moment.
Hey, Charlie.
Charlie, I don't know if you saw, but
I just saw an email come in for public comment.
Yeah, I see Ricky's here to talk.
Jim,
Yes.
you had emailed us two things about the ordinances. Which one is the one up for discussion today?
If you're talking about the two things I just emailed you,
Yes.
one is an ordinance and then one is the reissuance of the mayor's declaration. The ordinance itself is up for your approval. You don't approve the declaration. She issued it after you guys are done. But I wanted you all to have it because there's a quirk in them that if you pick it up, I will explain it. Of course, I just told you there's a quirk, so you'll ask me about it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Charlie, by the way, I didn't include you. I'm going to forward that stuff to you now. I apologize for not forwarding it, including you on that. You should have it in a second, Charlie. Hopefully everybody's well and healthy. Good.
Today, at least. No promises for tomorrow.
Nope. We count our days one at a time, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And the fact that we're able to count them itself is a blessing, isn't it?
True.
On my computers that I have in front of me, I have 601.
Yep.
Mayor, you're muted.
We're still waiting for Sharice, but we can.
I never got confirmation from Sharice.
Okay, well then we'll go ahead and get started. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council members Brown,
Here.
Colebrook,
Here.
Hersey, Jacobson,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Roberts. Dennis, you're muted.
Oh, I'm here.
Mary Alice Wu.
Here.
We have a quorum. Before we begin, I'll summarize the streaming procedures and public input. Anybody can watch this meeting on our streaming services on UPTV or attend virtually via Zoom. We have several different ways to provide public input. You can provide public input by email, mail it to City Council, it's all one word, at urbanaillinois.us. These will be read per the City Council rules and time limits. You can provide public input via Zoom per the instructions on the website. We will be muting participants except during public input. That would be public participants. And video is going to remain off for all members of the public, even when they're speaking. If you want to speak during public input, you'll need to provide your first and last name, and please raise your hand using the option as shown in the participant window. And you'll be unmuted when called on by the chair. You can provide public input by phone by calling the phone number shown in the agenda, which is, let's see, I'll try to get that phone number. But if you wish to speak, raise your hand by pressing *9. Okay. We have one item on the agenda tonight, and that's the purpose of this special meeting, which is to reaffirm the ordinance and reissue the emergency order. Before we begin and before we take public input, I do want to make a statement, and it's related to the incidents of April 10th. So at 4:30 p.m. last Friday, Urbana police were dispatched to a report of a shooting outside an apartment building on Colorado Avenue near Cottage Grove. Champaign resident Camarion Busby, Urbana resident Aaliyah Lewis were ultimately taken into custody in relation to this incident. A bystander later posted a video on social media showing a portion of the interaction between police officers and these two individuals. The video on social media is upsetting to watch. Thankfully, it's not the only video we have available to us to understand this incident. There are numerous videos from the squad cars and at least 8 body-worn cameras that will give us the full picture of this incident. At this point, City Administrator Carol Mitten, Human Relations Officer Vasilia Clark, and I have watched close to 2 hours of body camera footage from 4 different police officers, and we've spent several hours meeting with police department leadership. I've received questions from people about what they've seen so far on the bystanders video, and I appreciate those who are waiting to draw conclusions until more information can be provided to you. The public has asked about the tactics employed by police officers to gain control of the situation. Concerns focus on the type of weapons displayed, why some tactics were chosen over others, and the degree of force employed to take Ms. Lewis into custody. You also want to know why the officers weren't wearing protective masks while we were navigating the coronavirus pandemic. These questions and others will be answered, and we'll answer them through the course of the investigation and review of the incident. So here's where we are while the investigation and review is ongoing, and then we're going to address questions and concerns using the following process. So first, I've directed Chief Seraphin to conduct an expedited review of the use of force in this incident, and he'll report findings to the Urbana City Council. When he comes to the council, he'll also address questions regarding weapons used, types of tactics employed when police respond to reports of shots fired. Just for context, police get 25,000 to 26,000 calls for service each year that they respond to. And use of force also includes display of a weapon. Use of force is employed to overcome resistance roughly 100 to 150 times out of those 25,000 calls for service. Each of the incidents regarding use of force is reviewed individually, and this of course won't be any different. We're continuing to collect all the facts and witness statements related to the incident. We're going to work with authorities to determine how and when body camera footage can be released to the public in order to best answer your questions while protecting the integrity of the pending criminal case. And it's important to remember there is a pending criminal case related to this incident. The body cam footage will provide a more complete picture of the many, many factors that go into decision-making and actions taken during the incident. Now, you may have read in the press release that a loaded gun ultimately was found on Mr. Busby. But after police arrived on the scene, and it was in response to calls for service related to a shooting, they learned that a bullet had gone through the window of a nearby apartment that was occupied at the time. It was a first-floor apartment across the street. But they did not know who was in possession of the weapon when they first located Mr. Busby and Ms. Lewis. And you'll see through the investigation how information was developed during a very, very fast-moving situation. We've had questions about this Civilian Police Review Board. I wanted to make sure people understood that Urbana's Civilian Police Review Board, the CPRB, is an appeals board. So procedures are outlined in the Urbana City Code, that's section 19-20, Article 3. A complaint can be filed with the Urbana Police Department or the Urbana Human Relations Office. Complaints must be based on a first-hand account of an incident, and they can't be heard until criminal proceedings are resolved related to the incident. Upon receipt of a complaint, the Urbana Police Department conducts an investigation of the complaint, reports the findings to the complainant and the CPRB. The complainant has the option of appealing those findings to the CPRB in accordance with the procedures set forth in section 19-32. And then regarding the use of PPE, an interim departmental policy regarding the use of PPE, which is personal protective equipment, was implemented on Saturday, April 4th, following the recommendations by the CDC. The interim policy specified circumstances when PPE was required to be worn by Urbana police officers and when it was recommended. And while that interim policy was in place, police leadership worked on a more permanent policy. So the interim policy was in place at the time of the incident on April 10th, and it was scheduled to be replaced at 7 p.m. that evening with the new permanent requirements. So those new requirements are now in place, and all patrol officers are now required to wear full PPE, which is an N95 mask, gloves, and safety glasses when they're outside their vehicles. They are not required to wear it inside their vehicles or when they're walking from their patrol cars into the city building, for example. I wish we could have responded to the many questions and concerns about the events of April 10th sooner. And under normal circumstances, we would have. But as you know, these are anything but normal times as we cope with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on our community. And as you're probably aware, on April 11th, 15-year-old Terrius Pettis was murdered on Philo Road. Our police department detectives and officers have put intense effort into the investigation of this horrific crime while continuing to protect and serve our community. And you probably heard that a 16-year-old Urbana resident was arrested on April 15th, 4 days later, for that murder. So all of this reminds us that while the pandemic has swept away all semblance of normal routines in our lives, all the underlying challenges in our community remain, and many of them are made worse by heightened levels of stress and uncertainty. And I want to conclude by just saying the Urbana Police Department has long been known for its professionalism, training, and discipline. The department leadership has been proactive in its reporting and review of the incident on April 10th, and we'll be providing more information in the coming weeks. And I want to thank you for your patience as we gather the facts and review this incident, and you will be hearing more shortly. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public input. I'd like to remind everyone that public input is a time for the city council members to listen and the public to speak. And this is not listed as a discussion item on the agenda. It will be in future meetings. So if you, let me see. And I'm going to ask for assistance from the city clerk to make sure I see everyone who's raising their hands.
Okay, Ricky Baldwin has submitted email. I can either read it for him or he can raise his hand. For folks who want to know how to raise your hand, if you look at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you may have to scroll down to it. There's a participants window. Click the participants window and you should see a list that pops up on your right of the screen, or it doesn't on my PC. And there's a raise hand option there.
Would you like to read Mr. Baldwin's statement?
Yes, I can. Let me pull it up. Okay, this is from Ricky Baldwin. Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Ricky Baldwin, a registered voter for some years in Urbana. I live at 2012 Silver Court West in Urbana currently. I appreciate this opportunity to address you, at least virtually, in these troubling times. I have emailed most of you concerning a deeply disturbing recent incident involving police treatment of an unarmed woman, a video of which I have seen and I suspect most of you have seen. I understand there is or will be an investigation. I hope that the officers involved are on leave pending the outcome, but I wish to address the nature of the investigation from a public policy perspective. To be respectful of your time, I will summarize. 1, many of us are familiar with these investigations from the past and are not satisfied with the past. The usual investigating entities are not what we would consider neutral or unbiased, e.g. the state police or the FBI, who are after all part of the same basic brotherhood of law enforcement officers. 2, the scope of such investigations are typically limited narrowly to the question of whether department policy or law was violated. I understand that these questions must be asked, but as a citizen of Urbana, I expect more. My questions are, from a public policy perspective, even if policy was followed, why is an officer of the law, a peace officer apparently, according to what we see on the video, approaching an unarmed woman who is some distance away on a public street, exercising her First Amendment rights, not interfering with the officers in the execution of their duties, and laying hands on her, initiating a confrontation, escalating rather than de-escalating the situation? And why, in the course of this confrontation, in which she does not appear to be blameless either, but did not approach or initiate contact with the officer who attacked her, after 3 large men subdued her, had her on the ground, each of them easily had 100 pounds on her, and I can say that because I probably do too. Did one officer feel the need and authority to punch her in the head, which the city had admitted in writing, and another knee her violently in the side? Absent some amazing new revelation of secret weapons or kung fu powers on her part, this behavior we cannot tolerate from representatives of our city. Moreover, why do all these officers appear to be carrying assault rifles? Is this really necessary? These are questions that demand answers and serious problems that demand redress. 3, I know that the police review board in place, which may conduct an investigation, or I hope so, has certain deficits, which I urge you to correct at this time. Namely, the board lacks A, subpoena power for witnesses or documents, and B, the authority and funding to hire an independent investigator. Both these hamper the capacity of the board to conduct an impartial investigation. The board is hopelessly dependent on documents and evidence supplied by the police department itself. This is not acceptable, and it is not the review board that citizens asked for. I urge you to rectify this. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely, Ricky Baldwin.
Thank you. I see Jane McClintock.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak to this issue. I hope you're all having a good night. I was deeply disturbed when I saw the video, as I trust that you all were. And I'm also really disappointed by the review process. I've been trying to initiate an investigation by the Civilian Review Board of Police. And as the mayor pointed out, it seems like a very sort of broken and meaningless board, if you ask me. I would also like to point out that somewhat to argue against the fact that the ordinance requires that the person be an eyewitness. It seems to require that the person be involved, be at the scene, or be a witness. And I would argue that any of us who've witnessed that video might well qualify as a witness. I would also like to say, I mean, Mr. Baldwin has spoken very well to the disturbing nature of what occurred, but I also think it's disturbing that the police would have made the choice to arrest this woman during the pandemic when there's a huge danger to anyone being in the jail. I would say if we can't get on with the investigation of the police brutality until the criminal investigation with the victim is resolved, then we should drop the charges immediately, because it's ridiculous that she's being held in jail at all, so that we can get on with the investigation of the actual crime that occurred. And with that, I hope you all do the right thing and get us some answers and consequences sooner than later. And Danielle Chenoweth is here too with me on the same computer, so I didn't know if she could jump in and say a few words.
Chair Martlin, is it acceptable for me to give my public input at this time?
Yes, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Danielle Chenoweth. I live at 412 West Illinois Street in Urbana. I was one of the crafters of the Civilian Review Board of Police ordinance, which I consider to be extremely broken. There are many aspects of that ordinance which were passed, which were unacceptable, including the inability to have subpoena and investigative powers, and also forcing people to wait until the criminal investigation is over before looking at the incident at hand. So I want to articulate for the public, in case you haven't seen it, that on April 10th, there's a video released on Facebook and seen by thousands of people, commented on by thousands of people, where the police are arresting a man and moving him into a squad car. Meanwhile, a woman stands at a distance of 20 plus feet, appearing to speak and then shout. And at minute 35, you can see the officer leave his post of protection. I do not understand why, but he does this on his own without additional police cover, approaches the woman who is not, does not appear to be threatening in any way, and she actually walks towards him. This was reported inaccurately by the News Gazette. She walks towards him, hands down, and he chooses to put her hands on her, his hands on her. She resists, and he maneuvers her and puts her face down on the ground, arm behind her back. He is then joined by another officer with an assault rifle. At minute 54, you can see that second officer within seconds of touching the woman. He cocks his arm back and punches her in the head. The third officer then joins them. She begins to wail loudly and cry. At minute 123, the same officer who punched her then cocks his leg and hits her with his knee. She appears to be handcuffed, but you can hear her say something like, "I was just asking a question." At minute 2:55, you can hear her shouting to whomever may be listening, "He punched me in the head." Around minute 3, she is shouting to bystanders, and she mentions her name, which I will leave off the public for the moment for her privacy. An officer straddles her on the ground for over a minute. Then the two pull her to the police car. What I want to ask, and I have 2 minutes, are after 2, why did a woman officer aggressively go after a woman who was upset and standing at a distance rather than employing de-escalation techniques and negotiation? Why did he leave his post and put himself at safety at risk and her at risk by approaching her? He appears to have lost his temper on the video in that moment, and that is unprofessional. The second is after 2 large men put her face on the ground with arms behind her back, what, under any circumstance, is it acceptable to punch her in the head and knee her in the body? Why did the city leadership allow a press release to go out that says the officer struck her in the head to distract her? Mayor Marlin, why did you authorize this press release that would say that it's okay to strike someone in the head to distract them? Why has city leadership not stated that the officer is under administrative leave or the incident is under investigation until this moment? Why are members of the Civilian Review Board of Police hearing about this for the first time from the public? Why have they canceled their meeting this evening? It appears that this woman was threatened by her boyfriend with a gun and later beaten by the Urbana police. That is what it looks like to the public, and I would like a response to my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as I said, questions will be addressed in the coming weeks as we develop the complete information. Does anyone else wish to address the Urbana City Council? Okay. We'll move on to the agenda item. I've lost my agenda on my screen. It's the consideration of ordinance number 2020-04-024, which is a reaffirmation of ordinance number 2020-03015, reissuance of the mayor's authority to issue temporary declaration of emergency. Jim Simon?
Yes. Little background that led to why you are meeting tonight. I am part of a listserv of municipal attorneys, and on Monday and Tuesday started percolating questions about, do municipal mayor emergency declarations expire, and if so, I mean, other than when they're lifted by one reason or another, and if so, when would they automatically expire? It is, given the fact that Urbana is a home rule unit of government, it is not really crystal clear when they expire. Some have posited they expire at the time of the next regular council meeting after they were off issued. Others have posited that they expire in 7 days, and yet others have posited that they expire in 30 days. And a few have indicated that it's not clear, which is frankly my view. When it comes to matters like this, I take a very, very conservative approach because it involves a serious matter, probably one of the most serious matters that have been facing our nation in years. So I felt it appropriate and necessary just to protect the city, you all, and the mayor, to, in essence, reaffirm ordinance, the ordinance you passed last time in March 2020-03-015, by hopefully you adopting this current one, which I just sent out again just before the meeting, 2020-04-024. I also included, when I sent this out about 20 minutes before we all got together here, the draft of the reaffirmation of the mayor's declaration. You all had this on Tuesday when Charlie put it out on the agenda, and the mayor had some clarification she wanted, and she was right. There are parts that were less than clear, and I will apologize for that because since I've been hunkering at home, I've been slammed with all kinds of FOIA requests and other things that I am drafting. And this came up literally at the last minute on Tuesday evening, Tuesday late afternoon when we got it out. There is one thing that I mentioned to Alderperson Wu about a minute or two before the meeting started as we all were joining this Zoom meeting. And but I didn't tell her what it was, but I'm going to tell you all what it is. If you look at the ordinance that's up before you tonight, it provides when it expires. Section 2 provides when the ordinance expires. If you look at section, let me gather it up here. If you look at section C at the bottom or the end of the mayor's declaration, it also provides an expiration. And if you take a quick look at it, you'll realize that, gee, these look reversed. One says sooner, which is the declaration, and the other says later. I did that intentionally because we don't know where in Champaign County, and especially Urbana, where the virus contagion is going to go. We are clearly behind Chicago. Let's hope we stay that way in terms of percentages. But as we know from experience across the country, as some communities begin to flatten out their curve, that's the expression they use, flatten out their curve, even though there's still a lot of confirmed positives and unfortunately deaths, we don't know what's going to happen here. So when one of these events happens, what I want the mayor and you all to be able to do is reissue allow her to reissue another if it comes to that declaration and all. Also, your ordinance, I want your ordinance to remain in place. I take the view that being a home rule unit of government, you can, absent home rule preemption, obviously you can pass ordinances that affect the community. So while your ordinance remains in effect, the mayor's declaration may expire sooner. And if there's a rush, like the original rush, to get a declaration out, you will have legal authority under this 2020-04-024 ordinance that's up tonight that will allow that. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's hope it all expires just like the virus hopefully will expire in short order and by its natural expiration.
Can we have a motion and then we'll have, well, do you have any technical questions for Jim? Okay, can we get a motion?
I'll
Is
make
that
a
Dennis?
motion that we
Okay,
approve ordinance number 2020-04-024, reaffirmation of ordinance number 2020-03-015, and reissuance of the mayor's authority to issue temporary declaration of emergency.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bill. Dennis, you had a question, and then Mary Alice.
Yeah, so just reading it, just not very long before we began our proceeding here, I see that you're extending it, that you say that the original ordinance allowed a 30-day period for which this would be in effect. I don't see that there's a specific date for the ending of this second initiation of the emergency order. Do you intend this to be another 30-day period, or is this until further notice?
Are you asking me, Dennis, or the mayor?
Jim Rowe, yes.
Either of you, because I'm just trying to understand what is being proposed tonight.
What's being proposed tonight is the ordinance ending in 024. I included the affirmation or reissuance of the mayor's temporary declaration of emergency so you would have it. Also because it clarifies the expiration date for that particular order, but the ordinance itself is before you. I assume that the mayor will sign, if you approve the ordinance, I assume the mayor will sign the declaration pursuant to that ordinance sometime tomorrow morning, unless she's swamped with other matters. And I've been told that at least is the plan when Charlie and she can get together. That information will be put, the time and all will be put at the bottom of the declaration right now where there are blanks. And starting the next day, that'll be the first day of the 30 days. Let's assume the governor doesn't do anything to lift his order in 30 days. Let's say the mayor doesn't lift her declaration sooner than 30 days. And let's assume you all don't repeal either or both of the two ordinances, if you adopt this one tonight, within 30 days. Then the 30 days will expire and a new declaration will have to be reissued or some other form based on.
So in about 5 words, what you're telling me is that this is a 30-day extension.
It's a 30
as of whatever day she signs it, right?
I didn't catch the last one about every day. Say it again, please.
I just want to know if this is a 30-day extension or an extension beyond 30 days to some time
It will
indefinite.
not. Yeah, if none of the other things happen, it will expire in 30 days.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Alice.
Yeah, so Dennis asked basically what my question was in regards to section C on this. Just to kind of reiterate, it sounds to me like this grants the mayor the ability to continually reissue this declaration of emergency for 30 days, unless those 3 other things happen.
Any one of those 3 other things.
Right, any one of those 3 other things
Yes.
happen. And so if the order, if there is a declaration, if there's a continuation, a reissuance of the declaration order, and the city council says, all right, it's time for us to lift it, and we vote for that, then we basically overwrite that 30 days that's left on that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The moment the council repeals these enabling ordinances, the emergency, according to your judgment, by repealing those ordinances, overrides the declaration, because the way the declaration is written pursuant to these ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
And I tried to clarify that in your, in the ordinance itself. I have a notwithstanding in there, I believe. Yes, on section 2 of the ordinance, it says notwithstanding, essentially, you have the right to repeal, which of course you do anyway. I didn't have to state it, but I wanted you all to know that, and that's why I put it in there, and I want the public to know that too.
All right, thank you very much.
Eric?
I wonder if it would be possible to amend the period that this extension is for, so that when it is next due to be reinstituted, that it comes on a normal city council meeting night, so that we don't have to have a special meeting.
Legally, you can amend it as you see fit. And what I would do is make the change and get it to the mayor either later this evening or first thing in the morning. But yes, you certainly can do that.
So I'm gonna just look at my calendar and try to figure out what would be a meeting night that would be as close to 30 days as possible. So that could be, for example, the reauthorization could come to you on May 23rd. That would be that would be a Monday meeting. And that would be a little bit more than 30 days. It would be, so if either the date could go in or.
May 23rd is a Saturday, Eric.
Yeah.
May 23rd?
Yeah, May 23rd is a Saturday.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean May 18th. May 18th. May 18th. May 18th would be very close to 30 days. It would be like 32 days.
I didn't think we needed to reauthorize anything.
Well, that's what we're doing now, isn't it?
I mean, once we do this, it's up to the mayor to do it every 30 days, right?
Right.
Ah, I see. Okay, so
That's
so
way
then
it's
the burden shifts. So now the mayor can do it automatically unless we stop her.
Or unless the governor repeals, or lifts, or terminates his emergency orders.
Well, what? But let's make it happen. Let's make the next time that would happen, if possible, be on an ordinary council meeting night. For example, May 18th. So if the mayor decides at that point, hey, I'm going to redo this, I'm going to reinstitute it, that would come in the agenda the previous Thursday. And I'm very confident that we'd say, great, that's fine. But that would be sort of an orderly process and would fit in with our schedule.
Would you like to state that in the form of an amendment?
Uh,
Oh, we don't have a motion yet, do we? We have a motion on the floor. Yes. Would you like to amend the motion?
Yes, if I can.
If I could jump in.
Yes,
Yes.
Charlie.
I thought the purpose of the new sections that Jim has added was to avoid having to have a meeting, an extra meeting, but also that since two council members or can request an item beyond the agenda, we don't even need to amend it. They can simply, they can make the request right now, and I'll make sure that it's on the agenda for May 18th. So a review of any reissuance. So there really is no need to do an amendment.
That procedure would definitely satisfy me because I have 100% confidence that you'll do that.
So I would be willing to be the second person to suggest that the item appear on the May 18th agenda.
Okay, we'll do that.
Can I have a question before we take any vote? I raised my hand.
Yes, Dennis.
So, all right, I just want to say that I think it's fine that you're extending the emergency period ordinance. I don't mind that at all. But I think it's wise for the council and for the public to have a chance to vote on or discuss and vote on approval of that as well. I think that every time that we do an extension, I think that you should have the city council supporting it as well. So We're talking about putting it on the agenda the next time this would be useful to come up. And I'm hoping that, it wasn't clear to me that this process required any of our meeting to confirm your decision, which we did the first time we initiated this emergency proclamation. So I want to be clear that the city council will be asked to affirm it in the future every time you ask for it. And I don't think we're going to be in disagreement about it, but I think it's due process that's important.
And as Jim noted, nothing is clear in this time, so we're acting out of an abundance of caution on this one, but having your input and approval is good. So
thank you. So we can count on it that we'll be asked to approve it after you've decided that you need to extend it.
And we may, and you know, in another month, we may know a lot more than we do now.
Well, things can change, and perhaps we'll be talking about returning to normalcy if we're really lucky, but we don't know that it's going to be happening.
Things change about 50 times a day these days, so you can count on it to change.
All right. I just like the process. I think it's a very important process for the council to be supporting the decisions as they come up.
Thank you. Is there another hand? Did I see a blue hand waving?
I was just going to note that Councilmember Hersey joined us.
Hi, Sharice, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry,
nice.
I thought it was 7 and it's at 6.
Just in time for the vote. Are we ready to vote? Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Colebrook,
Yes.
Hersey,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
and Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes. Thank you for coming in on a Thursday. And with no further business before the council, the meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Everybody be healthy.
Stay healthy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.